So here we are, welcome, thank you. We'll start the session with the bell, and our landing practice today is going to be a poem which I'd like to read out by Dorothy Hunt, which kind of sets the tone for the session today. So if we'd like to just take a moment to get comfortable, finding a posture that feels dignified, that respects our intention to remain alert, but also allows us to let go of any unnecessary tension. I like to think of the spine being lifted by the back of the head, so the chin drops a little. And then the rest of the body can kind of just melt down either side of the spine. Feeling that sense of connectedness with the ground. Feeling the ground under our feet. And letting go of that energy, that striving energy, that need or idea that we have to leave this moment. Just letting that dissolve. And coming together with the sound of the bell. Allowing our attention to rest on the sound. And resting our attention with the silence that remains. So I'd like to start this session with a poem by Dorothy Hunt. It's called "Peace is this moment without judgment." Do you think peace requires an end to war? Or tigers eating only vegetables? Does peace require an absence from your boss, your spouse, yourself? Do you think peace will come some other place than here? Some other time than now? In some other heart than yours? Peace is this moment without judgment. That is all. This moment in the heart space, where everything that is welcome. Peace is this moment without thinking that it should be some other way, that you should feel some other thing, that your life should unfold according to your plans. Peace is this moment without judgment, this moment in the heart space, where everything that is welcome. I love how simple that poem is, how straightforward. Peace is this moment without judgment, this moment without thinking it should be another way. And the theme this week is judging. It's this habit of judging. This very automatic habit of the mind to label and judge. So peace then can be quite difficult if we're constantly leaning into and believing what our mind is coming up with in every moment. And it largely depends on what state we're in, how closely connected we are to the present moment, or whether we're lost in thoughts about it, or maybe we're in some kind of emotional distress, some sort of panic, some anxiety, some stress. It's not always easy to shift back into the peacefulness of the present moment without judging. But essentially what we're doing here today is practicing that. We're practicing it on our day-to-day experience. To manage our expectations when it comes to learning a skill like mindfulness. But if we practice regularly in these kind of moments, it becomes easier. And that peace can become more familiar. It's like we're not ever expected to jump on the piano and play Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata or some complicated piano piece without perhaps years of practice. And the same is true with our minds, with our psyche. We've been issued these faculties, these habits, these survival traits that do us very well. They keep us alive, judging, safe, not safe, friend or foe. And it's base level stuff. It's very black and white. But as most of us can appreciate, we're probably, for the best part and the majority of the time in our lives, we're looking for more than survival. We're looking for connection. We're looking for peace, love, purpose. And if we're unconsciously pulled into judgments, particularly snap judgments, rapid thinking, if we're unconsciously pulled into that, it can come in the way of relationships, of communication, it can cause us to feel disturbed. So only if you're happy to, if you feel comfortable to recall a recent disturbance, whatever that may be, just a minor thing, when your heart last contracted in some way, when you felt that urge to change something or vent that little frustration that life and our minds do sometimes jump to the bigger things. You don't have to confront big difficulties today. We're just looking at a way of exploring with curiosity what are these problems made of. And it's easier to do it with something that's a bit lighter. Maybe it was a traffic jam. Maybe someone said something or didn't do something. So just to help us to see this more clearly, we can dissect it, see what the contributing factors are to this situation. Really simply, we can see that we have life unfolding as it is in this moment. Whatever this moment consists of is already here. This is what life has produced. And the origin of every event happening now trails back to the very start of the universe. Uninterrupted. So we have close to 14 billion years of energy appearing in this moment, in a shape or a form, perhaps a person, perhaps an inner experience. And then we have our thoughts about it. So the situation is here, is present, it's happened or happening. And then we have a narrative or an idea in the mind that this shouldn't be happening, that this is wrong. And it reminds me of a quote by Byron Katie, which is, when we fight with reality, we lose, but only 100% of the time. So this is what happens. The mind, in all its splendor, takes a moment in front of us and starts to resist it, starts to deny it, to blame it. Starts to judge it. And certainly when I look into my own experience about these disturbances, what I'm struggling with is actually a form of unacceptance. It's a form of resistance, not only of the behavior or the event, but perhaps the parts of myself that I recognize in that behavior or event. So I'm reacting strongly because there's a part of me in the difficulties that I'm observing. And Carl Jung puts it quite bluntly. He says everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. everything. It might not mean that we have that problem, but it will be pointing us towards something within us, some form of denial, resistance, blame, fear. So this is when we look outwards and blame and judge. But sometimes we can be disturbed by how others are perceiving us. This is a big one. If we're feeling judged in some way, we know that feeling. I'm sure we've all been criticised or disbelieved or some painful impression from somebody else. And we can dissect this as well. We can actually see that we're not reacting to what they're saying, but we're actually reacting to the fact that we're believing what they're saying. We're taking what somebody else is saying as true, and then we start to have an emotional reaction to that idea. It's quite easy to see if somebody says something irrelevant or calls us a banana or something very inert, and it's pretty much going to bounce off and we're not really going to have an emotional reaction to it. But if someone says something a little bit more closer to what we fear that we might be, that we perhaps a part of ourselves that we try and deny or hide, or simply we're taking their word for it, we're just agreeing with what they're saying, then that's what we're reacting to. We're reacting to our acceptance of what they're saying is true. But either way, whether we're reacting to our own thoughts about ourselves triggered by what somebody else has said, or whether we're reacting to what someone else is doing, the way from this or through this is to come back home. It's to come back into our own experience and have an honest and compassionate look at what we are bringing to the game. What are we bringing to the table? Am I somehow agreeing with that person? Am I somehow not accepting life as it is? And is that why I'm suffering? Because we can waste so much energy by blaming and looking outwards, when quite often there's space for a solution much closer to home. And this isn't, about gaslighting ourselves and blaming ourselves. It's about liberating ourselves. I remember the first time I really clicked into, I don't have to accept other people's judgments about me. It was a moment of euphoria. That's just somebody else's conditioned patterns emerging in this moment. Just as mine are emerging when I'm labeling and judging other people. And it helps from a compassionate point of view to understand that we've all picked up these filters that we see the world through, these lenses, inadvertently, accidentally, unconsciously, quite often at an age where, the image I like to use is when we're kids, we're like a dry, squeezed up sponge that gets plomped into the bucket of our environment. And as a kid, our brain is just sucking in everything about the world. This is our These are the rules. This is how the world works. This is how I keep safe. I must do this, I must think that, copy this person, copy that person. That's what a child's brain is doing, is just absorbing everything. And quite often that information is coming from funny places and people who have gone through difficult situations themselves. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's not blame. But it encourages us to question the existing software that we're running on, the existing scripts, the existing beliefs. And a big part of that is revealed through judgments of others, judgments of ourselves, what we believe about what other people are saying about us, what we react to emotionally most strongly, how things should be. You know, these are all great pointers to come back home and find some space within ourselves to witness these stories just unfolding in the present moment. So that's enough talking from me. I'd like us to perhaps just have a little shuffle around in your seats. Did anybody have any questions or want to say anything about what I've said? Is everyone happy just to crack on with the meditation side of things then? Lovely. So part of dealing with difficult emotions and situations is coming back home to the body, giving ourselves some inner space, allowing things to flow. And that'll be the theme of today's meditation. So again, finding a comfortable position for the body. One that allows us to remain alert and relaxed. Allowing our attention to rest on the sound of the gong. Tuning into how the body feels. Any stiffness or stuckness that we can just breathe into and let go. Just breathing some space into the body. Deepening the breath. And we're just going to do a little extra breath. So we'll take a natural breath in When you get to the natural end of your breath, just adding a little extra inhale. Slight pause and then natural exhale. And then a little bit of an extra exhale at the end. Slight pause and natural inhale. Extra inhale. Slight pause and natural exhale. So following that pattern, or just following your own rhythm of breath. Allowing the mind to rest only on the breath. And we can already get a sense that the mind wants to do something else. It will start commentating, interrupting, basically thinking. So we just remind ourselves that we're not here to abolish or squash out thoughts, but just to redirect our attention to the breath. And in particular, focusing on the sensations of the breath. So we can feel breathing happening. Letting go of any controlling of the breath and allowing the natural rhythm, the natural flow of breathing to resume. Remaining curious about the sensations of the breath. And there's a subtle change of sensation as the air comes in. And how it changes as we breathe out. Constantly flowing, constantly changing. Noticing how the body feels as we let go of the breath. Noticing the body softening with every exhale. And just checking if we're present with the breath or if we've become attached to thoughts. And whenever we recognize that the mind has taken over or been overtaken by thinking, we simply relax our attention. We may need to relax the brow, the forehead, allowing ourselves to open up again to start receiving the breath again, the sensations of the breath. And in this way, thoughts aren't an obstacle, they're not a problem, they're not something to be rid of. They're simply a reminder for us to come back to the present moment. The present moment like there is any other moment. Noticing that we're always here. And we're always now. And the only thing that disturbs that peace is when a thought or feeling arises that we don't like. And the mind goes off trying to solve it. Noticing how the mind is often trying to solve problems from the day, perhaps what happened before this. Maybe some difficult event that's happened within the week or month. Maybe the mind is moving toward the future, trying to solve tomorrow's problems. So whenever we find ourselves involved in thinking, our response is cool as a cucumber. We simply soften. Soften the brow. Soften the face, the jaw. Softening back into the body. Coming home to the breathing body. coming back home to this. And again, when we find that the mind has taken over in thinking, future, past, or some way judging, acknowledge that that is simply what the mind does. And we can create space by softening the brow, softening the face, softening the shoulders, coming back to the breath. And while we're here, present in the body, we may notice or come across feelings, sensations that we don't want to feel. Noticing how we habitually leave the body to go somewhere else, imaginary, when we come across something challenging. Maybe it's the feeling of anxiety. Maybe it's the pain in the body. And our cue here is to soften that area. Soften the heart. Soften the eyes. And we breathe alongside our difficult sensations. We're present with our difficult sensations. Not thinking about them, but feeling them directly with the body and giving them space to be here. And of course, if it's particularly strong, then we can move toward or away from any experience at our own discretion. Finding refuge in the breath or a different part of the body. Coming to see our senses as a field of energy, suspended in awareness. It's light coming through the eyes, the energy of sound appearing through the ears. Sensations of the body hovering in awareness in this moment. And as we come toward the end of this meditation, offering ourselves a moment of compassion. Maybe we feel like putting our hand on our chest and feeling that connection. Maybe a hand on the belly. And offering ourselves a moment of total forgiveness. Allowing ourselves to start again. And to start again. Letting go of what no longer serves us. Letting go of beliefs and ideas that aren't even ours. Rules to a game that we didn't sign up for. Forgiving ourselves for being so hard on ourselves. And then, as we entered the meditation, following the sound of the bell, Coming back to the group in a way that feels good to you. Slowly, gently moving the body in a way that feels right.